would like to talk about how e-mobility solutions could be fostered specifically with a focus in urban areas within the Baltic Sea region. And this is what we focused on in our recent and still ongoing Interreg project called BSR Electric. I have listed also my colleague Nicolas Restrepo Lopez, who is unfortunately not with us, but good news is that we have a dear colleague from the Turku University of Applied Sciences with us in this session, Annika Konasvika, and she'd be invited to say a few words in the frame of this presentation as well. So without further ado, I'd like to start now. So basically, firstly, I'd need to explain the background of our project, where we come from and what kind of problems we tackle. We are focusing on urban areas because these actually have to address the problems of congestion, noise, and emissions of greenhouse gases, NOx, etc. And they at the same time have to provide sustainable transport modes for an ever increasing urban population due to the drive towards moving into cities, and also the increased goods traffic on the roads, on the urban roads within the next decades. This actually represents a very challenging transition of transport systems, specifically urban transport systems, and within a given time frame that is set by, say, the global agreements that have been closed, and also the European and certainly national legislations. There is a tight time frame, and in order to solve the question, or in order to address this problem specifically for urban areas, we need a set of comprehensive strategies combined with pilots and well-working initiatives, as well as a joint collaboration on multiple levels and across sectors. This means basically a collaborative effort to transform the overall transport systems. With this presentation, I'd like to offer you a real-life case study, basically, of the Interreg-funded project BSR Electric, in which we'll illustrate how the close interaction of European municipalities with further agents within their urban transport systems are and play a key role in achieving this transformation within the frame of the European Union's low-emission strategy. So that's basically the background. What's the challenge? Well, the challenge in more detail, kind of zooming in onto everything. The transport sector represents almost a quarter of all greenhouse gas emissions in the EU. These are recent figures from the European Environment Agency. And within this transport sector, the specific road transport is by far the biggest emitter, as it accounts for more than 70% of the emissions. It is also, therefore, the main cause of air pollution in cities. And this is basically the large challenge, the big challenge that we're facing in the BSR region, in Europe, but certainly also on a more global level. What's this mobility strategy all about? Just a brief, introduction into this framework. This European framework has been adopted in 2016, and it would ensure of especially passengers. Forecasts expect the bouncing back to normal travel behavior in the next year, or even a little faster. The mobility strategy contains a broad set of measures to support Europe's transition to an overall lower carbon economy by supporting job creation, by supporting economic growth, sustainable growth, by supporting investments, and certainly also introducing innovation into European areas. There are three key priority areas, which is regarding the transport sector system. The first one is increasing the efficiency of the transport system. There is still a lot of energy and kind of misused or wrongly used. There's a speed up of the deployment of low emission alternative energies. This includes certainly electric mobility, but also other modes of sustainable transport like gas, like hydrogen. And of course, the third area for action, and this is where our BSR project basically is kind of placed within this bubble. It's the move towards zero emission vehicles on the roads. In this overall strategy, a key actor or key actors are explicitly mentioned by the EU. These are cities and the local authorities, as they play this very, very crucial role in delivering the strategy. This basically kind of filtering all the way down to the ground. They do incentivize alternative solutions of transport by offering a larger portfolio of transport modes, urban transport modes. They encourage active travel, meaning walking, biking, by shifting the urban settings, basically. They certainly provide public transport and increasingly also in a zero emission way. And they set up bike and car sharing systems. So these are these specific examples. However, if you take a look over Europe and also within the BSR region, you will see that progress in these various fields is still very, very different. Oops, now it doesn't move on here. Here we go. Okay, so now zooming in onto the BSR Electric project, what do we do in this project? We try to inspire our stakeholders, not only those who are fixed partners, but also our associate partners, more than 55 associate partners, to enhance the utilization of electric mobility and urban transport. We are showcasing and piloting real-life use cases of, I'd say, new urban e-mobility modes. And we do by this contribute to supporting to the EU targets, meaning the reduction of the transport sector emissions and an overall climate neutral urban transport by 2050. In our project, we do almost everything except electric vehicles, the cars. They are a separate theme, basically. We focused on say niche solutions or smaller solutions, some of them micro scale solutions, in order to really take a look at the entire transport systems and the various modes that could be improved by means of zero emission vehicles and offering alternative modes. So we focused on Elogistics, on the last mile solutions, these typical deliveries of, say, fresh food and goods. We focus on e-buses, on the public service, basically, how to improve that one. We focused exactly on e-bikes and the cargo e-bikes. E-bikes are already very well seen all over the Baltic Sea region as well. But certainly also the introduction of cargo bikes into these existing systems is a relevant step towards improving, say, not only the active mobility, but also the sustainable urban mobility. We did focus on the role of e-scooters, which is an often overlooked field. You may look at this. It looks like a golf cart. Basically, it works similar ways, but we put it in a very different context where it meets the needs of a local population, very specific needs. And this is also something that we focused on, putting kind of placing electric mobility solutions in different contexts where they may not have been used before. Finally, we also looked at the issue of electric ferry transport in terms of commuting ferries. If you think of, for example, the city of Gothenburg, we have a lot of waterways, and they had a diesel-powered ferry, and now they're slowly shifting towards the electric ferries. We have a lot of ferries in Norway that are kind of transformed into electric ferries. Of course, there are also the larger ferries, for example, between Puttgarden and Rolby in Denmark. where they try to make the shift. But here we focused on, say, those ferries that are dedicated to supporting commuter transport. And we had a good case study from Rostock and Warnemünde in Germany, on the Baltic Sea coastline. These are some of the key facts about the project. With a look at the date, you'll see that we are almost in our final month of this project, meaning now we have all results at hand. We can showcase and promote, which we do with this presentation, certainly. However, our cooperation will certainly carry on. We have a well-working consortium, and we are planning already for kind of, say, the next term. And due to the close collaboration that we have established, we have many, many mutual points for further collaborations. So here you see all our partners are basically scattered all over the Baltic Sea region, most of them in coastal cities as well. And we have an interdisciplinary consortium consisting of universities, of research institutes, of city actors, and we also have a non-governmental organization from Norway called Zero on board as active promoters of sustainable modes of transport. And with this interdisciplinary consortium, it really allowed us to attract a lot of different stakeholder groups, decision makers, not only from the public authorities, but also from the company sector, and certainly also from the academic sector. Now, a step back a little bit about how to trigger transformative change, and this is certainly also relevant to our project. When you want to trigger transformative change, introducing sustainable e-mobility solutions is regarded as a first step towards achieving this fundamental systemic change. And this is actually what we try to do with most of the piloted use cases in the frame of BSR Electric. They are new to existing systems, or they are a good complementary or addition to the existing systems, but they haven't been introduced in a, say, systematic manner yet. They are still in the kind of piloting or projecting mode. Whereas other modes of sustainable transport are already showing some signs of upscaling. For example, the e-bus sector. There certainly the first valuable experiences and best practices have been gathered and have been shared all over Europe by now, especially also within the BSR region. And there the policy makers and decision makers have started to basically induce new processes, systematically introduce technology, change political frameworks, decisions, guidelines, and strategies that now basically force the existing actors within the system to focus on, say, procuring more sustainable or purely sustainable modes of transport. When regarding e-buses, for example, this is something I'll show a little bit later on as well. This may, for example, be a strategy where a city decides that from a certain point of time, they only will procure electric buses. So often this upscaling is, however, associated with the challenge to really use integrated digital approaches. There's a lot of data that needs to be processed, that needs to be made sense of, and you need big data technology and ideally also artificial intelligence, AI, to outbalance basically the demands of the various actors within the system, and of course also focus on optimizing the supply side, especially the energy provision, or the provision of sustainable energy in that fact. Here we go, come on, go on. This is what we'll deliver, or what we are going or have already delivered. We started in 2017 with our kickoff meeting. Then we first of all did an assessment of the state of the art in the BSR region. How is the state of art, focusing again on the various use case sectors. Where are they going? What are their future aspirations? Then we focused on a set of 7 use cases where we in detail kind of worked on producing best practices, and also a relevant outcome for output for decision makers is a kind of a very hands-on checklist that decision makers can use when they consider introducing this kind of transport mode into their own transport systems. In parallel, we developed an online learning resource for decision makers, a free resource, an open accessible resource, also beyond project end, certainly, where decision makers can basically make them familiar with the approaches, with the technology, play a little bit around. They will find storylines of decision makers who want to introduce these new technologies, and basically it's a playful way of getting involved a bit deeper with this theme. And in this context, we produced an overall kind of results document, the so-called BSR Electric roadmap. We held our final conference in June 2020, of course, online due to the COVID pandemic. And I'm happy to state that our conference site, with all the presentations and all the recordings of our panel discussions with expert speakers, is still openly accessible. So feel free to join us and check it out if you're interested and if you have the time. Now I focus into these a little bit on our use cases that we focused on, and basically it all started with a question that could pop up in the mind of decision makers or other actors in the transport systems. And in Finland, we had a case where the Helsinki Environmental Authority wanted to support especially families in the metropolitan region who owned already 2 cars, and they thought it would be a good idea to start a campaign basically, and to create awareness and raise and to generate basically the question in the minds of the users if they really need a second car, because second cars are the typical cars where you pick up the kids, you go for the groceries. They are most often the older cars, right? So these are the cars that are generating more air pollution in that case. The idea was to inspire the families to substitute the use of second cars through e-bikes, especially through the regular ones and also the cargo bikes. And the colleagues in Helsinki ran a set of campaigns to inform families, but also inform housing companies. And they offered the tests of e-bikes and cargo bikes so that families and other users could really experience what it's like to change these modes of transports. That was a highly successful campaign. However, they found out that basically the most attracted users were those who only had 1 car, and they basically replaced their first car with a cargo bike or an e-bike solutions. So that was a somewhat surprising outcome of this one, but still worthwhile to consider also for the urban decision makers in that sense. Then we had also a use case on the Elogistics on the last mile deliveries. And here you certainly know, everyone who lives in an urban center knows how thick the air sometimes is when all these delivery vans pass by or they are parking on the streets. They are loud and they come in the very early morning hours and just don't let you sleep anymore. And the idea was also to offer real-life tests of zero-emission vehicles for the so-called last mile freight transport This was done by our colleagues in Copenhagen, who offered kind of a transport mode, this alternative mode, for a distance of approximately, I think, around about 20 kilometers from a municipality called Høje Tastrup to the inner city center of Copenhagen. There was in the beginning of our project a lack of suitable vans, so the market did not offer already a lot of vans and small trucks, and that was a great challenge that had to be tackled. And this also points to a barrier of introducing and upscaling. So if the market doesn't provide the vehicles, then it's really hard to kind of convince companies and the users to really take up this technology. However, our use case now after 3 years really paved the road for the creation of these new and sustainable business models, because it was basically the municipality of Høje Tastrup sitting in the driver's seat, acting as kind of a spider in the web, gathering all the interested parties together, feeding them with new information, with progress basically. They managed to install a fast charger in their municipal region, and then managed to attract some new vans to get the companies to do the real life tests and experience it firsthand, how it is and how it works, how reliable the vehicles are, and how well it works, how well it is perceived by the buyers of the projects as well, because this could also certainly be used for inducing a greener image of your transport solution. Then we had a very distinctive use case that actually addressed a cultural specificity, and this was ran by our colleagues in Riga in Latvia. This focused on the scooters, and you see in the little picture there, I hope you can see it, there are scooters on a hospital floor. We also ran this piloting on a cemetery ground, actually. And why this somewhat strange use of e-scooters on cemeteries? Well, the Latvian society, kind of visiting your, say, relatives in the graveyard is a part of the culture. So people regularly do this, and also the elderly, they regularly go to the graveyards to water the plants, etc. pp. Now, these graveyards in Latvia, they are normally very big environments, very big grounds, and many of the elderly who are already disabled, they have problems walking and traveling. They dearly appreciate these kind of additional service that offers them to be included again. So for us, it was a means of social inclusion to allow a very distinctive target group to meet their really personal needs in that way. And the municipality wanted to go down this road, and they introduced these e-scooters on these public grounds. And that was a very, very exciting experience, and with successful results. Now, this is how we basically comprised our results, and we tried to picture it in an illustrative visualization that basically tells it all what we focused on. Here you see kind of a an illustration of a city with a ferry, with a kind of, it's called family center. I don't know if you can read it, I hope so. There is a hospital, there's the graveyard. We have a depot with e-buses. We do have several e-bike and cargo bike stations. We do have a cargo goods depot on the bottom right. And we certainly have the city hall where our decision makers are set, and the universities where the knowledge is held. If you go to a website, you can basically explore this little city and click on the various icons, and then you'd go deeper and deeper and deeper, kind of in a step-by-step approach. It will lead you into our use cases, and it'll explain in far more detail. And now we have our colleague from Turku on board, and I did not yet present her use case, but Annika, if you would like to share just a few sentences about the key key lessons and lectures of your use case, and I put up this picture again, so we can point basically towards yours here as well. Please go ahead. Oh, your mic is still out, still turned off.
Oh, okay, I can switch it myself. Okay, yes. So in Turku, we actually addressed well, the feasibility of replacing car or van use actually in city logistics in a city-owned company. So basically, we looked at what sort of trips are made with cars or vans in this company, and whether they could be replaced with electric vehicles, so e-vans basically, or even light electric vehicles. And this was really interesting. We actually leased a couple of an e-cargo bike and an e-bike, and just to see in what purposes they could be used, and how the employees actually felt about using them, like if they saw that as a potential replacement for car use. Because as we know, in our everyday life, we do, or people do, some of us might as well, we take the car even on short trips, and that basically the same thing really applies to the work setting as well. And it was an interesting survey. So the feasibility of both EVs and LEVs, light electric vehicles, in replacing conventional ICE vehicles. There's many factors that can drive that change, and many factors that constitute barriers to that. These factors can range from attitudinal factors to companies not actually seeing the value with the e-vehicle deployment. One of the main outputs or results of our measures was actually to build or devise a so-called fleet track and route optimization tool. And so this tool, from now on, it will exist in our BSR Electric website at Turku University of Applied Sciences. It sort of helps the companies to evaluate, for example, the mileage which can be covered with the vehicle. So the companies can assess whether or not the range is enough with the electric vehicles for the purposes that they need. They can evaluate the different types of vehicles. So basically, prior to making purchases of these vehicles, so they can sort of justify the business case as well for these changing from normal vehicles to electric. They can estimate the greenhouse gas emissions for vehicles. So sort of focusing on the image-related issues also, or climate goals, for example, that many companies these days, at least in city-owned companies, do have. And also they can sort of try and create the routes that they usually take and see how they would be optimizing in terms of charging these vehicles. And also they can estimate energy consumption via this tool. And also at the same time, they can look, okay, could these trips that are taken, could they be all taken with the light electric vehicles instead of the normal ones? And then we did this tool, and also now we have a report out. It's actually currently sent to being layout, but it's basically ready, and it addresses also the behavior barriers, because there's a lot of behavior barriers related to deploying light electric vehicles, because not everybody cycles, not everybody moves in their free times or something. So if people are told to do that in the work setting, there might be initial, no, I'm not doing that. I want to use my car, or I want to use the company e-van or normal van. So yeah, that's what we try to do and address on our part in the at Turku University Appliances, together with a city-owned company.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Annika. I hope that was of interest to the others as well. Certainly a valuable addition, and we look very forward to the final report and showcasing it more, certainly. So if you want to have a kind of another visualization, another exciting look at these kind of results, basically you could also flip on your iPhone if you have one. We have produced an augmented reality app that kind of basically allows you to build and grow these nice kind of pop-up illustration on basically your desk. So all you need is to take your iPhone, install the app, and then start the BSR Electric app, and then you can explore in this augmented reality way our use cases there. It's a way of attracting interest of again, a different set of stakeholders, those who are tech savvy, who like to play around with these, maybe the youngsters as well. So this was a part of our dedicated communication strategy to really attract different levels and different age layers also of our stakeholders. Now I'd like to take you on a journey into our use case 3, where we also performed a lot of research and found some very interesting insights. And this also goes very well and supports the findings from Annika and Turko as well. In Hamburg, we focused on the implementation of e-buses in public transport. Basically, this came from, this originated from a political decision in Hamburg. Our Senate, our Hamburg Senate, decided to transform the public bus transport, bus fleet. And by 2030, now we should only have electric buses on the road. Now we have, I think, more than 300 diesel buses currently on the roads, with only a few electric now being introduced and kind of in the upscaling mode of the system. And this introduction requires still a lot of ongoing research, of measuring, of monitoring, of performance analysis, and of course of sharing lessons learned, because we have two transport operators, big transport operators in the city, and they are responsible for the overall public transport. We ran a survey in 2020, and unfortunately it was planned when the Corona lockdown started. So basically it delayed our operations a little bit. However, we conducted this very recently, now in June 2020, where already a larger set of electric buses had been put on the Hamburg roads. And together with a renowned survey institute, we basically asked the passengers about their expectations, about their impressions, about the awareness of the vehicle they are riding with. So they were interviewed inside the buses and also outside the bus stops. And interestingly, or maybe very logically, we tried to generate what are the key user needs. We were thinking of, okay, if they take an e-bus, or a company offers an e-bus, they would appreciate this environmentally friendly behavior. But basically, first and foremost, the most important user needs are: how reliable is the bus, and does it come on time? So it's the typical things actually that you also would expect from other modes of transport. So and these basic needs, they are closely associated with range, of course, of the vehicles, and with charging, this charging situations as well. And here we found out for the bus case example that, of course, the ambient temperature, the heating and cooling of the buses, of course, the route characteristics, the traffic, the slope, if you go uphill or downhill, or just plain roads, and then a very interesting behavioral factor, the driving efficiency, are the main impacts. With optimizing them, you can really then address these key user needs. And it doesn't matter if you run an electric bus or a diesel bus. Diesel bus may be more reliable in terms of range, because you only just fill the gas tank once. Whereas with the electric buses, you'd need to have certain depot and charging stations in between if you run longer roads, or you have to set up different systems. But the human factor has indeed a very large impact on that. Up to 30% of more efficiency could be generated if you have good drivers, if they know how to run the electric vehicles, and then these issues of reliability and punctuality should not be a problem anymore. So basically here, this also pictures a little bit that you would need to evaluate and monitor a lot of data. You would need to install a very clever data-driven approach, a system to really optimize your eBOS operations. But then there is the way is open, the way is free for really entering this upscaling phase and transforming your public transport sector in that region. So with this, I'm coming to the conclusions now already, and I'm very happy to talk a bit more later on if you have any questions. And I'll just conclude that basically within the frame of our projects, we have experienced and shown as well and report on that the transport of goods and passengers within specific urban environments still remains a major contributor. There are still a lot of challenges, barriers that need to be addressed, behavior that needs to be, say, transformed as well. And the noise and the pollution, the air pollution and the road congestion remain a crucial challenge for almost all urban areas, especially also in the BSR region. Our project provided a small contribution to the overall transformation of transport systems by shedding light on a set of urban mobility solutions, maybe those that are not so often looked at this point of time. Some sustainable mobility technologies, as I explained before, for example, the e-bus operations or the e-bikes, have already reached an upscaling phase. So they are visible in the market, they are used, they are accepted, or they are being accepted more and more, whereas others are still driven forward by project-based initiatives, for example, the e-ferries, for example, the e-delivery, and they have to prove their feasibility or practicability and win public assistance. Or at the end of the day, it's the business case that matters, as Annika referred to. So if you have, say, economic actors involved, they certainly look also on the profitability. And finally, such a challenging transition within a given time frame that is very ambitious and set by the European Union, it requires actually a combination of various initiatives at multiple levels, and ideally it would involve all the stakeholders and sectors along a value chain in a, say, cooperative manner. With this, I thank you for your attention, and I would just like to point your attention to a kind of a follow-up on electric mobility, the so-called Baltic Sea Region Mobility Summit, which is going to be held in 2 weeks of now, between the 8th and the 10th September, also in an online manner, as it is fashionable nowadays. And here you could also interact with not only us and our partners, but also with further Interact projects that all address different aspects of, say, urban transport. One, for example, the sustainable urban planning, and the other one specifically the multi-modality of urban transport solutions. If you want to join us in our BSR Electric project, feel free to link up with us, to join our LinkedIn group, or tweet with us and for us, to us. And otherwise, I'd like to say thank you very much.